what's interesting about it is that they're not demanding a retraction from what I see from Wired. They're not trying to send a legal team after Wired to demand a retraction or to potentially sue them for libel. And instead, they're just making content that doesn't necessarily even address the major points of contention here, but simply just moves on past it, directly attacks the journalists who reported on it, and then says, well, the Republicans are doing it too. Now, that last part is not incorrect. Republicans do exactly this, okay? That's why we call them grifters. A lot of people are yelling at Taylor for her reporting on this. I don't understand it. From what I've seen, they're not actually like directly undermining any of the veracity of the reporting. Like, they're not saying the reporting is like wrong. They're just saying that they just keep saying like, oh, this is not true. And then they turn around and say like, these guys just kind of gave us money for fun. Like, they gave us money they were giving us money while also simultaneously like had actually no demands whatsoever. And like the contracts that you're claiming had these like, non-disclosures and stuff are also fake, but I haven't seen like any information on it either. I don't have an issue with like building out a robust media landscape or infrastructure for counter messaging against like Republican nonsense, but I think like disclosures are important. Is 100% a smear campaign on Taylor? Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say about it. Like, you can't get mad at a journalist doing their job. Like, their job is journalism. It's on Wired magazine. It's not like, this isn't like a blog post or like a YouTube expose or whatever. This is like, there's a rigorous editorial application. There's a standard that they abide by. Wired magazine especially has been pretty good in the Trump era. One of the only mainstream resources in the Trump era that has been actively holding the administration to task. So I think like parasocial fans of like liberal content creators feeling bad because the content creators themselves feel bad about having their commentary or their infallibility or their like independence get called into question because of this article does not change the claims in the article. It does not change the journalism and the evidence presented in the article. And I think because a lot of people don't have media literacy, they just look to stuff like this and assume that, they have the same editorial standards as like a TikTok call out post. When you are writing a story for a serious publication, there are fact checkers that work behind the scenes. You get information on the record, you get information off the record, and you get information on background, okay? And on top of that, you have a trove of data that you sometimes won't even put in the article, but you show the actual fact checkers. You show the editorial team. There's an editorial process that is maintained. There are lawyers that look over these articles before they are released, because if you have a news outlet, that's just like slinging dirt, making up fabricated information, they will get into a lot of trouble. Now, obviously, editorial standards have been lowered when it comes to issues that pertain to like American foreign policy, even like these premier institutions. Someone said like Fox News. Yes, as a matter of fact, yes, Fox News is a great example of this, because Fox News has an editorial side, like the Fox News commentary side, which is insane, and they make up all the time. But if you go to like the Fox News digital side, the newspaper side, if you noticed, you can compare Fox News reporting on things that I have said to slop tuber commentary people, and Fox News will pay extra attention to ensure that they are at least showing like the full context of the quote, because even Fox News's digital media side actually has a standard that they abide by. Maybe it's a little bit lower than like a New York Times or something, when they're not talking about Israel, of course, but even then, if you notice, like whenever I get written up on Fox News as opposed to like the New York Post, there is a far different standard that they abide by. And I always show it. And I tell you this. I mean, these guys have been sued because of their editorial content. They've been sued successfully by Dominion, if you remember. So that's usually what happens. If you don't abide by those editorial standards, like, you will get punished. You will get punished financially. It's like one of the only areas of litigation that still that still maintains some semblance of credibility for the media landscape, for mainstream media in general. This isn't like a bullshit article, and there's a lot of back and forth happening, some of which is, I guess, marginally productive, but most of it is wholly unproductive, and much of it is stemming from, like, I think, content creators that have worked with the Democratic Party through like these these donor groups that are funding them, feeling as though they've been outed for not being independent. And I think that's like creating some animosity, and therefore they're just kind of like attacking the messenger rather than the reporting itself. Because I haven't seen anything from people that address this that calls into question. I haven't seen anything from people that address this that calls into question like the actual information featured in the article. Okay, so we'll start off here. This is Brian Tyler Cohen. So Brian Tyler Cohen owns Chorus, like, which is supposed to be this like well, not independent, but like Dem aligned influencer strategy, influencer marketing group. And at most, like, the argument that I've heard is, well, Republicans have been doing this. Why can't we do it as well? Which is fine. I mean, it's not wrong.
At the risk of giving an internet troll more attention, I want to address a piece that Taylor Lorenz wrote yesterday for Wired. An initiative aimed at boosting Democrats online offers influencers up to $8,000 a month to push the party line. All they have to do is keep it secret and agree to restrictions on their content. Literally nothing.
I think that chatter was wrong. Asman actually agree with Taylor. Oh, thank God. At least he didn't fucking go to that direction. Jesus Christ.
And this statement is true. The article is about Chorus, which is a nonprofit that I helped found to build up a creator ecosystem, which everybody says they want, but few are doing. So here's what Chorus is. It is a scholarship program.
And no, Asman has surprisingly defended Taylor on this, to be honest. I mean, this is like, this is the most middle of the road article, okay? Someone writes an article, okay, for Wired magazine, and then instead of addressing the claims that are being made, most people just turn around and go, no, you. And I think a lot of people don't have the capacity to understand that, like, that's not an effective counter, okay? You can't know you your way out of, like, a court case, for example. If there is an issue and your audience wants to understand, like, where this funding is coming from or why you didn't disclose this funding that was coming from, you can't just turn around and go, well, the person who wrote this article also gets funded by a different like grant structure, right? Like, this is not an effective counter, okay? Unfortunately, or this should not be an effective counter. Unfortunately, it is a very effective counter, okay? First, what you need to do is actually address the main point of contention. Good Trouble said she did this in his video and showed proof. No, what they're saying is that Taylor Lorenz is a part of the Pierre Omidyar, like, independent media fund or something, right? That's what it is, right? I mean, look, Pierre Omidyar, who also is responsible for The Intercept, is a very interesting, he's one of the few billionaires that's interested in at least like allowing some independent media and investigative reporting to take place. That's the reason why he funded The Intercept early on. I don't know if Taylor Lorenz, I think Taylor Lorenz confirmed that she actually had gotten, she's a part of that grant program. That grant program gives independent reporters and investigative reporters in general money from time to time. It's entirely different, however, from like a shadowy PAC. It's entirely different than like a Democratic Party aligned donation structure to Democrat content creators. Yeah, she is an Omidyar Network Fellowship currently, which is completely different and is public. Yeah, I think they might have given money to Dropsite as well. They give money. It's a fellowship. It's like a scholarship. Okay, there's a difference between a scholarship program and a Democrat Party donor aligned shadow donation group funding liberal content creators with some fairly rigorous standards. Brian is lying. I have zero financial ties to 1630 and neither does the Omidyar Network's LLC reporting program, which is not a dark money org. It is nonpartisan. Brian took dark money and failed to disclose his funding. I didn't take dark money and disclosed my funding. I don't think that the fellowship structure is the same as what's going on here. OMDR Network receives no funding for the reporters in the residence program via 1630 fund or any other outside sources. Our programmatic work is supported entirely via our foundation and LLC. More information about where we focus and how we invest is publicly available on the site. Brian Tyler Cohen's debunk was just 5 minutes of him speaking to a camera with zero documents or contracts shown. I don't know how everyone's taking this video of him refuting it. Yeah, so from what I saw, a lot of people basically just turned around and said the exact same things. Most of it was, this is not true, but even if it was, Republicans are doing it as well, so we have to do it as well. And also, it's just not true. They just kind of gave us money with no obligations whatsoever. And if we wanted to report on it, if we wanted to disclose that we were getting money from these guys, then we could openly openly disclose it. We just chose not to disclose it, right? So none of it actually tackles the main points of contention on the Wired article, or at least like the expose that came through from the Wired article. I mean, you could be pro-liberal, pro-Democratic Party, and you could have been totally on board with like the messaging. Right. And that's part of the reason why you got money from this group. Like, that's fine. People do independently and organically believe these things as well. It's just like doesn't just exist in the ether. It's not, you don't always have to be paid to say these things. Not everyone is like a Richie Torres. Having said that, however, I think it's important for people to disclose their funding in general.
To teach creators how to grow their accounts, foster engagement, launch their own shows, and become profitable on their own. It's an incubator program to build the pro-democracy ecosystem. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The right has been doing this for years, and the left needs to catch up. That's why we're doing this with Chorus. So let's talk about what Chorus is and what it's not. Chorus does not pay creators for content, does not tell them what to say, it does not control who they talk to or work with, and there is absolutely nothing in the contract that could even be reasonably interpreted to say that we do. Period.
But I don't understand. If that's the case, where is Taylor Lorenz getting this information from? The reality of the matter is, you can't, either there is a massive up here, like, and either she like didn't see the correct contract or something, or someone fed her misinformation, like one of her on background or off the record resources just either deliberately spread misinformation, just lied to her completely. And then not only did that person lie to her, but that person lied to a team of fact checkers, the editorial team. And at no stage did the legal team at Wired magazine look at this and go, this doesn't seem correct. So did they just like make up a bunch of fake contracts and then feed it to Wired magazine? If that's the case, why would they have done so? Like, there are too many points of failure and too many lies on behalf of like, in order for me to arrive at this conclusion that like this reporting was untrue, there are a bunch of independent influencers that must have gotten together and like fed the same exact fake information to Taylor Lorenz. And it feels too incredulous.
Full stop. I don't know a single creator who would willfully sign up for a program that would tell them what they can or can't say. That's not what this program is. We pay people to show up to workshops and technical trainings to optimize their content online. For example,
But even this guy saying he got money, his saying he just got money for fun, like his counterpoint to Taylor makes no sense. No, this is the person who owns Chorus, okay? So Chorus is an out and about like DNC affiliated influencer structure, right? So that's out in the open. That's not actually even a point of contention here. The reporting expanded on that, on who is backing Chorus, the 1630 fund, and who is actually funding the 1630 fund in general. Okay, and so when Brian talks about Chorus, that's his program. Like, that's his actual thing. Like, that's his personal nonprofit.
We've got trainings on how to package content for YouTube, trainings on how to optimize audience retention for Instagram and TikTok, trainings on how to form an LLC. Again, there are zero restrictions on their content. And by the way, the program works. In just 2 months, our cohort has added a combined 6 million followers, that's not including me, and seen their views and engagement grow. That is the point of the program, to teach creators how to be effective with whatever messages they want to promote. And with regard to keeping it a secret, there is a standard confidentiality clause in the contract to protect the privacy of the creators. On the literal first day of the program, it was made clear to all of the creators in our kickoff session that they were absolutely free to talk about Chorus. And we immediately followed up to confirm that in writing. Creators have videos about Chorus. They've got donation links to Chorus in their bios. I myself have made videos that were posted all over the internet about Chorus that reached hundreds of thousands of people. It is not a secret, and it never was.
Yeah, I don't think that's the secretive part. I don't even think Taylor was saying that that's a secret. Wait, this doesn't make any sense. Unless, I don't think Brian is misunderstanding the reporting, right? Like, because the reporting does not make it seem as though Chorus is this secretive element here. Chorus has a website, and on that website there are content creators, many of which actually work with Chorus, and some that do not actually work with Chorus that are even used in the pitch decks, for example. Even in the Wired article, if you guys remember, like Kat Abu-Ghazalek, who is now running for Congress, who used to work as an influencer and also had used to work at Media Matters, was demanding that she no longer be presented in the pitch decks, for example. So they were like, so that kind of stuff is, this comes across like a little bit of a straw man. I think they should just be like, yeah, we're getting money from Democrats, and we're getting money from Democrat donors. And this is a normal part of the process on the Republican side. And we're trying to build a robust liberal media ecosystem. And I think the major issue here was that we did not disclose who we were getting paid from, and whether or not some of the content that we were putting out there was an actual ad or was a demand being made by either Chorus or Chorus as a middleman for 1630, which is the actual backer. I'm saying he's saying that that's not the case. So now it's his word against Taylor's sources that told her that this was in the article. Taylor herself has written about Chorus. Chorus is a public group. Taylor in the article also even says that there are creators that are affiliated with Chorus on the website. There are some creators who aren't even affiliated with Chorus that are also featured on the website. Okay? But the contract stipulation is still real. You can be affiliated with Chorus on the website and then be told through the contract to never actually say when you are doing an ad or being funded by Chorus. There's a difference between, hey, this is a group, this is an influencer network that I'm affiliated with, versus this is an influencer network that I'm affiliated with that's paying me so that I say certain things. Do you understand? I think there's a fairly big difference between someone saying I'm affiliated with this group versus I'm doing an ad for this group. I'll give you an example. There are numerous organizations, right? And this is literally illegal, and you will get in trouble for doing this. If you're a content creator that's a part of 100 Thieves and you say, I'm affiliated with 100 Thieves, you don't have to actually disclose what level of affiliation you have with 100 Thieves. But if 100 Thieves was like telling you, for example, to do an ad that they have sold inventory for off of your stream on, and you didn't disclose that that was an ad that you were doing for 100 Thieves, or that was an ad at all that you were doing, that would be illegal. The difference, of course, is that when it comes to political advocacy, unfortunately, the boundaries are a little bit different, which is really fucked up. This is something that I take issue with in general, right? Anyway, this is the scoop. Powerful dark money group is secretly funding high-profile Democrat Party influencers. Big liberal content creators are being paid up to $8,000 a month to push party messaging. Democrats hope that the secretive Chorus Creator Incubator program funded by a powerful liberal dark money group called the 1630 Fund might tip the scales in their favor after Kamala Harris' stunning loss to Trump last fall. The program kicked off last month, and over 90 influencers are allegedly taking part. Creators told Wired that the contract stipulated they'd be kicked out and cut off financially if they even so much as acknowledged that they were a part of the program. The contract itself says you are not allowed to say it, but the website, the Chorus website, as far as I understand, has like a bunch of content creators that are unaffiliated and also affiliated on it, saying this is our network, this is our pitch deck, these are the people that we're working with. Ultimately, if those contracts are falsified and they're shown to be, the contract stipulations are shown to be entirely different than the way Taylor reported on it, then that's on her. But when I read an article from like Wired magazine from a reporter like Taylor Lorenz, my initial expectation is not going to be, oh, this is slop or this is false. This is a falsehood. You can't just like lie in a piece of news coverage like this. Like, he's not presenting evidence. It's just his word against the journalism of the articles.
There's the implication in the article that this is some arm of the DNC or the Democratic Party. We have literally nothing to do with the DNC. I spend 0 minutes of my day thinking about the DNC. The creators do not toe any party line. How could we? There isn't a party line. Creators are absolutely allowed to speak out against the Democrats, and in fact, plenty do. And frankly, course creators should and do criticize Democrats when they suck, and quite often, they do suck. I've seen posts saying that this is APAC funded, which couldn't be further from the truth. I'd venture to
Yeah, I don't think that's the case. That's not an argument that was presented by Taylor at all either.
guess that most course creators, myself included on both YouTube and Substack, have spoken out against the atrocities in Gaza. Lorenz says that the 1630 Fund is, quote, a powerful liberal dark money group. 1630 Fund is our fiscal sponsor. One of the largest documented donors to 1630 Fund is the same person funding Meteor's Reporters in Residence program, which Taylor Lorenz herself is a part of. And guess what her monthly stipend is? $8,000 per month. So she's criticizing an entity that is funded by someone that she is currently taking money from. I guess it's okay when Taylor Lorenz gets paid, but no one else. The monthly stipend that we offer is so that creators can do this work full time. We've had numerous creators.
So, I don't know exactly how much money she gets from the Omidyar fund. Okay. And I don't know if Pierre Omidyar is a part of the donation structure for the 1630 fund, but the major difference here is the disclosures. If it's publicly disclosed, if a grant is a public grant and it's publicly disclosed, it's entirely different than having a bunch of shadowy donors that fund an organization with contractual stipulations that demand that you do not disclose that you are being funded by this organization. What's the point of Brian Taylor Cohen lying about Taylor here? It's not even, I guess technically it's not even a lie. I guess like the only thing that he's wrong about or lying about, or he might be misguided about is the funding, but like you're attacking the messenger instead of the message. It's just it's a trick that a lot of people do. It's a very successful deflection mechanism to say, oh, well, no, you're also getting funded by this guy that we're also getting funded by.
Creators in the cohort quit their jobs so that they can focus on creating content full time. That is what we want. I'm really proud that we can give creators that security for as long as they're in the program. We want people to create pro-democracy content full time, and we want to make sure that they can afford to pay their rent and their bills while doing it. If I could have cohorts with 1,000 people in it so that everybody could be part of the program, I would. For everybody saying that they would like to be part of the next cohort, we would love for you to apply. That's our whole goal. It's to build up an army of pro-democracy content creators who can speak authentically about the issues that they care about and be able to do it as effectively as possible. I should note that while I started this program, I have never and will never get paid.
Okay, I think the major problem here is like, why do the contracts stipulate that there are no disclosures whatsoever, and what level of editorial control are baked into the contracts? Because now it's just the contracts that Taylor and the Wired team has reviewed versus, which is hard evidence, right? Hard evidence that is backed by the editorial control process that exists in mainstream outlets such as Wired, and the legal teams and the legal reviews that take place in the process, and the fact checking that takes place in the process of like putting out an article such as this one. It's not the same as like a Substack report. Okay. Ultimately, it's just what he's saying is this is false versus the Wired reporting.
This 100%.
Like this isn't Brian Tyler Cohen against Taylor Lorenz. This is Brian Tyler Cohen saying Wired is putting out fake news. He is angling this as like Taylor Lorenz being an internet troll, and I think it's because he doesn't want to come across as like shitting on Wired magazine, which does great reporting. So he's just directly tackling the messenger by smearing the messenger rather than address the message It's a common tactic applied, a common tactic that's used that is unfortunately very effective. Donald Trump does it. A lot of people do this. I think the best possible way to go about this would have been to just be like, hey, we fucked up. What is this? What is the Chorus policy agenda exactly? One of your 75, 90 salaried influencers posted a screenshot of the contract trying to debunk something. Book engagements. Chorus will provide contracts with access to Chorus Newsroom, which coordinates booking and engagement opportunities for creators with government officials, policy, nonprofit experts, and others whose expertise and experiences are relevant to Chorus's progressive policy agenda. Contractor agrees to 1, utilize the Chorus Newsroom to book engagements. 2, disclose the Chorus Newsroom personnel any engagements with government officials or others on topics related to Chorus's policy agenda that contractor arranges through other means. If there's a policy agenda from this org and is significant enough that your salaried influencers have to disclose their engagements relevant to it and agree to coordinate booking and engagement opportunities around it, then surely it can be defined, and by whom. This person is a Chorus influencer that was trying to debunk the narrative in the contract and then leak the contract. Is that what happened? The other side of this is like, if this reporting is factually inaccurate, there is a process through litigation that you would normally go through. What's interesting about it is that they're not demanding a retraction from what I see from Wired. They're not trying to send a legal team after Wired to demand a retraction or to potentially sue them for libel. And instead, they're just making content that doesn't necessarily even address the major points of contention here, but simply just moves on past it, directly attacks the journalists who reported on it, and then says, well, the Republicans are doing it too. Now, that last part is not incorrect. Republicans do exactly this, okay? That's why we call them grifters. That's why we call them grifters.
As a volunteer, I have never earned a dime from Chorus, and I never will. I want every dollar that we raise to go to creators so that they can do this important work without spending 8 hours a day working at some different job. I've been saying for years that the left needs to build up its creator space. That has never been more true than it is right now. Influencers and creators have never been more important when it comes to how Americans are consuming their news. The left is a decade behind right now. We desperately need incubators.
This part is correct. He's right about this, right? If you were to say it's really important that we also build a robust and transparent progressive media network, okay, to actively counter the misinformation that flows from the right, then that's fine. You say, hey, we fucked up. We shouldn't have had these contracts that are so ridiculous, and we should have disclosed donors, and we should have always been transparent, even if the law allows us to not be transparent. That's important. I think that's the best possible way to go about this. And the worst possible way to go about it is that to do like almost Trump style, like this person sucks and is bad. Because like the thing that they're pointing to is the Omidyar disclosure filing from 2022 before Omidyar Network reporters and residency fellowship even existed. It's for $45K. Omidyar Network is a billionaire's own philanthropy org, and none of the residents failed to disclose that they're on the Omidyar Network fellowship program. But it's very telling that the reaction from this journalism about a cohort of influencers devolved into defensive lies and glorified botnet of influencers throwing misinformation against the wall to smear the reporter. Like, it's just making me, I feel a little bad about a lot of people that I actually do appreciate, whose voices I appreciate in this space, like Good Trouble especially. Like he's not in any way, shape, or form quiet on Gaza at all, right? He's not one of these guys he's actively spoken about Israel's genocide, Israel's apartheid. So like for him to also join on the chorus, and Jessica Burbank as well, I think is great. It's somewhat disappointing to see them immediately go after like not even the actual article and the revelations in the article, but instead just like directly attacking the person who did the reporting.
Teaching and amplifying new content creators, and not just Chorus, by the way. There are other programs in this space doing the same thing. I want all of them to succeed. We need all of them to succeed. There are people like Taylor Lorenz who are desperate to tear the left apart, and in fact, it becomes clear who her efforts help when you hear stuff like this.
Genuinely, I kind of like Taylor Lorenz because I know that she actually believes what she says. Do you get what I'm saying?
So yeah, I generally don't align myself with friends of Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens.
I don't think Taylor Lorenz is friends with Tucker Carlson. No, that's not. A lot of people don't understand this, but like, even if you have disagreements, I said this yesterday, even if you have disagreements with the way like Taylor conducts herself or you know, some of the things that she believes or some of the things she advocates for, ultimately her work speaks for itself. She is the type of of journalists that unfortunately no longer exists as much, where like people will be like, oh, she'll burn you for a story. And it's like, that's not wrong, but that's what journalists do. Like journalists do that. That's what the job of a journalist is. That's what the job of an investigative reporter is. In many instances, a tenacious and maybe a little, maybe a little crazy is like something that is necessary with good reporters, good investigative reporters. That's it. I mean, I guess I understand why people are directly attacking her because, I mean, she's been attacked endlessly from virtually every single different ideological background on the internet. There's a lot of things that you can pull from, smears or even like valid critiques or whatnot, but it's not about her reporting. And as a reporter, as a journalist, when you are criticizing someone's reporting, you have to criticize their reporting. You can't just like criticize who they are or what they've done or what other people think about this person, even if you have disagreements with them. Sean the Black, the leaked contract corroborated the Wired reporting on certain things, so Brian is just lying / misrepresenting. After ignoring my repeated requests for comment prior to publication, Chorus finally responded today. We have incorporated their comment into the piece, but have not issued any corrections on our reporting. The facts of the story remain unchanged. So there's two different things here, okay? Normally, if you are paid for by a political activist, political advocacy fund, right? If you're paid for by like a political action fund, right? Or any sort of campaign, you actually, a lot of people don't know this, you don't actually have to disclose that that's an ad. And the reason for why, I think it's really indecent that this exists to begin with, but the reason for why you don't have to is because technically it's all public. It's all public on the regulatory side, because if you go and like look at the Progressive Victory Fund, for example, you can find exactly who they have given money to for what purpose, right? We did that when I was covering the Wired magazine article as well. So because of that, because technically there is a legal disclosure that needs to take place on that end, you are not required to say this is a hashtag ad. It's a major loophole, and I don't like it, and I think it's fucked up. In this circumstance, there's an additional issue. There's even more contractual stipulations. Like they're taking advantage of the fact that this is a political advocacy organization, but it doesn't even have the FEC disclosure that normally would show up. The FEC and FTC declined to comment, but regulations in the influencer space are notoriously murky, and the intentional non-disclosures raise ethical questions about political advertising in the internet age. Don Heider, the chief executive of Marcola Center for Applied Ethics, says that the outlined restrictions violate ethical norms. We're living in an era where a lot of powerful people have taken the rule book and thrown it out the window, which is true. There's also the other side of the story, which is that the regulatory agencies that normally would look at this sort of thing, the FEC or the FTC, if it's a non-political ad, then it's the FTC technically. It's under the supervision of the FTC. If it's a political ad, it's under the supervision of the FEC. But both of these regulatory agencies have been completely gutted and undermined by the Trump administration. So who the fuck is supposed to even take notice of these sorts of things? Okay? So it's the fact that it's not illegal or in a legal gray area doesn't mean that it's good or appropriate. What's really funny about this stuff is that they're not even shitting on Wired magazine, which is what they should be shitting on. If they think that this is like fake bullshit, they should be shitting on Wired magazine, right? Why are they not doing that? Because they know that if they attacked Wired magazine, they would look like Donald Trump. But if they at least like attack Taylor, who has a ton of enemies online, then, then they don't have to say Wired magazine is releasing fake news. That's it. They don't even bring up that this is not like a random call out post, but instead like a fully fleshed out news piece on Wired magazine. After a recent Wired hit piece, now fully debunked, false claims started circulating, and sadly some of the people who chose to unsubscribe from my website membership Substack are unfollowed on YouTube. The outcome is exactly what the author was hoping for, that they put out a misleading and inaccurate article. If you want to support what I do, please consider subscribing. They're just now moving on to say that it's just been completely debunked, and I didn't see any of the debunking at all. They didn't actually debunk it, and it seems like one of the people that released a piece of the contract in an effort to debunk the contract unironically actually confirms that this was one of the standards. It confirms one of the standards that Chorus actually applied to their content creators in the own contract. Like she's literally saying it right here. She's showing it. Yeah, she bunked it. instead of debunking
You're
it.
literally acknowledging here that you can book it yourself. And the fact that the person who wrote this article claims to have read through the entire contract, but like, here it is, clearly written.
Yeah, collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all separately arranged engagements. Contractor further agrees to participate in
That
newsroom
what
for the
you stated
booking
in your article was
opportunities.
categorically false. Like, that is quite concerning about your journalistic integrity. Like, I get that these contracts are long and confusing. That's why people have lawyers and managers to help them, but you don't write an article about it unless you understand what's going on. This whole article is just written like, you know, this group, they have money and so they control them. And it's just like, no, that's not what's happening. If there is someone in this cohort that you are like, they are too much of a shill doing whatever the Democratic Party says, it's not this program that's the reason for that. I don't know how to put this nicely. It's either a personal moral failing by those people or it's a different contract they're under that says they can't criticize Dems, but it's not this one because I'm under this contract and you can catch me on the daily making fun of Andrew Cuomo.
Her core claim here seems to be that they don't have discretionary power over bookings. I mean, yeah, they don't have to abide by it if they don't choose to, but that doesn't mean like it's up to the discretion of the company to void your contract if you are operating outside of the contractual boundaries. Yes, it's up to Chorus, but the very fact that that is a contractual stipulation is confirmed. And it's not only confirmed by the contract itself, but it's also corroborated by numerous influencers that thought that the contract itself was far too rigid. So, like, you might have had a different experience with Chorus in terms of like who you collaborate with and like getting proper clearance or whatever. Or even in certain instances, never getting proper clearance from Chorus and they just like never chose to void it. But that doesn't change the reality that it's like literally written into the contract that she's showing. Ultimately, if you don't report to Chorus, they can just cut you, which is exactly what the article is saying. And that's legalese for saying you have to report it. It's mandatory. The fact that they don't actually follow through on this and like and void people's contracts over it doesn't change that dynamic at all. Yeah, it's not that you must disclose, but 3 clearly says you have to fully collaborate with them, which legally is gray, but gives them a lot of power. Yes, that vagueness is built into that vagueness is built into the contracts on purpose so that you're still at the company's discretion. You're still at the organization's discretion. They can like let you go, and they have financial power over you in that regard. It just doesn't make sense to claim that this is like a big misunderstanding or something.
Because she is not supposed to publish an article unless it's been like very fact checked and contextualized. And this was like,
this is true. She's not supposed to, and neither is Wired. Wired is not supposed to release an article unless it's like been fact checked. So I suspect that did take place. I have no reason to believe that Wired has dropped its like editorial standards specifically for an article that tackles like one Democratic big donor funded group that's like using Chorus as a middleman to fund Dem operatives, to make Dem operatives out of like otherwise independent liberal content creators.
Like very misleading. And then I also highlighted this section. I accidentally talked about it already earlier in the video. Creators will not publicize the relationship with Chorus or tell others they're a member of the program without Chorus's prior express consent. This is the protecting small creators part, but also lots of things in contracts are written very strict in case of legal emergency. I've told plenty of people casually that I'm in Chorus, and Chorus does not care. They've expressly told us that that's fine. This is just for if someone does something like diabolically evil and then Chorus has to sue them and they can just be like, girl, the contract. Like, it makes it easier in court. They don't really care about it otherwise. It's not top secret. If you want more.
Okay, so she then also, she also confirmed the other piece of this as well. Okay, so the point is the debunking that is taking place here is just an admission of the veracity of the things reported. It's just that it's not that big of a deal because people don't actually follow through on it, or Chorus has never followed through on it. She's literally confirming the article but claiming it's not that bad because of what they were told by Chorus themselves, I guess. Yeah. Especially in light of the way, I don't know. I don't like this. Like, the more I see people,
examples of people who,
the more I see people like attack the Wired reporting on this, because that's what they're doing without actually saying that they're doing that. They're actually attacking Wired, but they don't want to say that they're attacking Wired magazine, so they're like attacking Taylor Lorenz. The less I like the lack of transparency coming from these guys who I have until this moment no reason to believe would be like behaving this way. It's kind of It's disappointing. Yeah, I mean, look, it's kind of like this, right? Here, let's flip the script. It comes out that Joe Rogan is actually getting paid by a shadowy right-wing think tank, okay? Like a right-wing funding operation where, you know, right-wing billionaires are giving a fuck ton of money, okay? Right-wing billionaires are giving a fuck. This, by the way, very likely could be the case, okay? I suspect it probably is the case, right? Let's say the Wilkes brothers, who are famous for funding PragerU, Daily Wire, and numerous other Republican organizations, like Republican media outlets that are supposed to be independent, right, is also funding Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan doesn't bill himself as like a right-winger. He actually actively says he's not a right-winger, which is really funny because, I mean, he fucking endorsed Donald Trump and even endorsed Ron DeSantis back in the day. So what more do you need to know? Let's say a bunch of right-wing mega donors gave this exact same contract to Joe Rogan. Let's say that that took place. And then this contract was outed. Do these liberals behave the same exact way? That's the question. Do they behave the same exact way? I don't think they do. I think they celebrate this reporting. They say it's investigative journalism at its finest. And they use every opportunity to shit on Joe Rogan by presenting that article over and over again. Let's say there's a middleman that is Turning Point USA or something, right? And Turning Point USA is giving a contract to Joe Rogan to that dictates like who he has as guests and all this stuff, but they don't enforce it. But they have it in the contractual. They have it in written, okay, in their obligations, in their contractual obligations, where like you have to check in with us, who your next guests are going to be. You know, we have some level of like editorial control. We don't enforce it, but that doesn't matter, right? It still exists in the contract. And that was outed. If that was outed, people would celebrate this piece of reporting. But a lot of liberals are not looking at it in that same way. A lot of liberals right now are going, oh, this is an independent news network that's just like simply for no reason, with no stipulations whatsoever, just choosing to fund liberal influencers, some of which are political commentators, some of which are not political commentators, but they're just like funding liberal influencers, and there's no contractual stipulations, even though there are, right? But they don't actually abide by it. It's up to their own discretion, and they don't actually follow through on these contractual obligations ever. And that's really fucked up that you're you know, covering this and talking about the lack of transparency in this process. But if the counter here, coming from all of the content creators that were a part of this program, is that they were just giving us money for no reason and no questions asked, and because they like our vibes, and the contractual obligations were actually not real, or even if they were real, as admitted by this person, they actually never held us to that standard. This article should have never been written. Well, what's the reason why they're giving you the money? Or what's the reason why they gave you a contract then? They could have just given you the money, no questions asked, without a contract, right? It just doesn't make sense. The counters doesn't make sense. The counter narrative coming from a lot of people simply make no sense to me. I want to believe them, and I'm being as charitable as possible, but it genuinely does not make sense. Will you ever be transparent about the fact that your broadcast is funded by us, the viewers? Always. The Parker Broadcasting Service is funded by you, the viewers. For you, the viewers.
It's just very obvious. Okay, I have 2 more things to address in this video, and then feel free to comment if you have more things you want me to explain. But the first is, we've talked a lot about what course is not, because that article led people to believe that it was this, you know, a plot by the DNC to be able to just pay people off.
Hamni Kadoza, thank you for the 20 gifted subs.
Off to blindly obey them. Now that that's been debunked, let's talk about what course actually is. I have my Google Calendar for the week here to explain. Every morning we start off with a news update meeting. Okay, we meet for 15 minutes. I wake up and I'm immediately just told what the news of the day is, and we all get a chance to ask like questions if we want to know how a specific lawsuit is developing or what is Trump expected to do next with the National Guard, right? We're just making sure we're all the most informed. These are very brief. Sometimes they're 5 minutes. Then 3 times a week in the
Bro, this literally, I'm telling you right now, role reversal. If the American Enterprise Institute or the Heritage Foundation was doing this, which by the way, I have no reason to believe they're not doing this. They probably are doing this. And someone cracked that case, we'd be fucking popping champagne, talking about how fucking we did it. We found out. Like, that's crazy. That's like, they're giving you talking points, girl. What the hell? I mean, I understand why this. Here, I'll give you an example from Congress. Everybody fucking hates lobbying, right? This is the exact same argument that congressional, long-term congresspersons make about lobbyists and why they're important. I can't read every piece of legislation. I'm not the most knowledgeable on every piece of legislation. So obviously lobbyists are good for that reason because they make things easy to understand. They give me the talking points. They tell me all the good parts about this piece of legislation that they helped write. This is literally the argument. If you ever listen to congressional representatives that are constantly defending this unjustifiable structure that has caused America to turn into a direct oligarchy, they say that. They're like, well, they're giving me the talking points. I can't fucking go and look for the talking points myself, but it's your job. If you are an independent content creator, like, it should be your fucking job to like learn the day's news. That's what I do. This doesn't make any sense. What she's doing to talk about how like not nefarious this group is, unironically, from my perspective, looks a lot worse. The only reason why a lot of people don't see it as like being bad is because they're like, well, the Republicans do it too. And this time it's being done in a good way for a liberal media infrastructure. Like that's it. That's what
afternoon we have a more like specific training. On Mondays we have technical trainings. That's where we learn about a specific platform. So like someone will come and explain how you start a Substack or how you start YouTube long form. On Wednesdays we have advocacy training, which is where we hear from an expert in a specific policy field. So recently it's been a lot of people who work in like immigration explaining ICE or explaining the logistics of the National Guard, that kind of thing. And then Fridays are a little bit more flexible and they're optional. I haven't gone to them, so I like won't speak on it. And that is the weekly schedule. And the whole point of it is that you're like developing your channel over the course of 6 months so that hopefully by the end of it you can be your own self-sufficient full-time content creator, because people who work in politics on social media often have a hard time getting funding. Like it's hard to make it your job, but the right does a really good job of making it people's jobs, such that the political right actually pushes out 500 times as much content as the political left. That's an actual statistic. Every single day they're outperforming us in volume incredibly because they just make sure that people can do it as a job. That's what this program is trying to accomplish, to counter like the manosphere. Last thing I want to talk about is my belief that
I don't think Fresh and Fit is getting their fucking nose from the Heritage Foundation. They're just organically fuckheads, okay? And they're churning out that kind of propaganda. This is more in line with like, and maybe even more hands-on than what you would see at like a Daily Wire, right? Because like the Daily Wire is obviously getting funded by the same people that fund the Republican Party, the same shadowy donors that are funding the Daily Wire, and they are getting their talking points from the American Enterprise Institute and the Heritage Foundation. That much is very clear. Obviously, there is like this horizontal collaborative effort and a vertical integration when it comes to independent all the way to mainstream outlets within the Republican ecosystem. No such ecosystem exists for the liberals. They're trying to design one. The problem is, it's not being disclosed. And also on top of that, it's like, it seems like the standards are fairly rigid. I'm willing to bet, and this is pure speculation, but the lawyers that put these contracts probably just copy pasted a similar structure that like the Republican think tanks have and Republican dark money or Republican PACs have. I'm willing to bet that it's a verbatim identical fucking contract that Chorus is using, that Republicans are using. I don't have any evidence for this. I'm not a journalist, obviously. I'm not an investigative reporter, but I could totally see this being a Control-C, Control-V situation from the way that like the Republican operatives and the standards that they fucking abide by. The left will never win a contest for who has more billionaires, and justice for working people will never come from a movement driven by the politics of billionaires. Yeah, exactly. Even Pierre Omidyar is not an exception to this rule, for the record, despite the fact that he is a billionaire that has funded like investigative reporting, very good investigative reporting in this country. But there's obviously still plenty of areas of his own personal interests where he will dictate the terms of investigative reporting happening. This is why I always say you can't grift to the actual left, okay? This is why I always say you can't grift to the actual left. There is no like PAC money that you can get. When I say fight like the Republicans, I don't mean like literally get funded by corporate benefactors that have rigorous standards on what you can and can't say that control your editorial independence this dramatically. I mean, this is another thing. I always thought the Dem influencers hyping Biden felt like reassuring middle-aged people that Biden had young support rather than actually expand his appeal and outreach the young Dem voters. This was a failure for that reason. This is at the heart of everything that I stand against. This is the major problem. This is the major problem with like the way that the Democratic Party is trying to carve out a place for themselves in the independent media landscape. If you are not being transparent, if you're not actually abiding by if you're not actually trying to be as transparent as possible with what you are doing, and you're not revealing who your funders are, you're not revealing how much editorial control exists, then you inevitably are going to be defending the Democratic Party unconditionally and vociferously because you have a financial imperative to do so, and you're afraid that this will void your contract if you don't do so. And in that process, you're just creating this echo chamber where you're just spitting out the same fucking status quo politics that doesn't win elections, that loses elections. You just became another version of a Democrat Party consultant that goes on CNN and says, we can't talk about Israel because our voters don't want us to talk about Israel, which is a lie. Do you understand? We've moved beyond whether or not the Wired reporting that came from Taylor Lorenz is correct or not. I feel like there is enough evidence that even the debunkers have presented that shows that the reporting is actually solid. So I don't know why everyone is, I mean, I know why people are saying like this is debunked. They're saying that it's debunked because they don't want to address it, because it actually tackles one of the most important components of being a quote unquote independent content creator, an independent political commentator specifically, one that is different, one that is like not beholden to the Democrat Party, one that's simply enthusiastically supporting the Democrats because they agree with the Democrats because the Democrats are doing great things, right? Like when you are outed as being funded by Dem donors with like some fairly straightforward boundaries on what you can and can't say and what you can and can't do, then all of a sudden your audience is going to go, oh, are you just saying this, or are you just like reading a talking point that you got from a Democrat Party influencer media company that is like a middleman for big donors, shadowy donors? Here's the clause you couldn't see in the contract written out. Fully based on the screenshots. Yeah. Collaborate fully with Chorus regarding all such separately arranged engagements. Contractor further agrees to participate in newsroom events or booking opportunities in person or events at least twice per month. This is proof. This is a key component of the article that they're saying is not correct. And the only reason why we know about it is because this influencer wanted to debunk it as a person who is with Chorus. And the only debunking that came from her side was to simply say, oh, they don't actually like abide by this. It's just in the contract, but it doesn't mean anything. Okay, but if it's in the contract, and there are other influencers who have taken issue with this contract and tried to redline it, and they said, no, you can't redline it, that means they actually do care about this. They do care about it enough to keep it in the contract, and therefore, there will come a day when they will use that. Going back to the article itself, this proves that the article is not incorrect.
Part about that. Specifically from like the influencer side of it, they were offering influencers like thousands of dollars in order to post only good things about the IRA. And if you were like, hey, I'm going to be a little bit critical in my video, and they'd be like, oh, you're critical, you don't get the money. And so if you see influencers that are like, this is why I always say, if you see influencers that are unable to be critical of Biden to any degree, there is a good chance that through some maybe proxies or organizations, they're getting paid to say the things that they are getting paid.
Yeah. And Sean is not the first person that is like talked about this, right? And now we just have receipts. If this exact same thing was happening with the Republicans would behave in the exact same way, but the liberals on the other side of the equation would be celebrating this as great journalism. Okay? That's it.